Chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally transform how you see the loneliest season of your life, will completely revolutionize how you understand the isolation you've endured, will utterly shift how you perceive the solitary path you've walked when everyone else seemed to travel in groups, move in crowds, journey in communities while you walked alone. Because right now, in this very moment, you're about to discover something so profound, so liberating, so absolutely paradigm-shattering that it will change your entire relationship with solitude. Your aloneness wasn't punishment. Your isolation wasn't rejection. Your solitary path wasn't evidence of being unwanted, unloved, or abandoned. Your aloneness was protection. Your isolation was preservation. Your solitary journey was divine strategy, keeping you safe from contamination that would have derailed your destiny, from influences that would have corrupted your purpose, from connections that would have compromised your assignment. The aloneness hurt. It confused you. It made you question everything about your value, your worthiness, your place in the world. You watched others surrounded by friends, supported by communities, embraced by groups. You saw people moving through life with constant companionship, perpetual connection, continuous belonging. And you wondered what was wrong with you, what you lacked, what deficiency prevented you from experiencing the same social abundance others seemed to have effortlessly, naturally, automatically. You felt punished. Of course you did. You interpreted the aloneness as divine rejection, the isolation as cosmic abandonment, the solitude as heavenly forsaking. You questioned what you did wrong to deserve this, what sin you committed to warrant this, what failure you enacted to earn this. You looked at your solitary path and concluded you were being disciplined, corrected, penalized for something you couldn't identify, couldn't understand, couldn't comprehend. You felt defective. The loneliness convinced you something was fundamentally broken in you, essentially flawed about you, inherently wrong with you. You examined your personality for defects, scrutinized your character for flaws, analyzed your being for imperfections that explained why you couldn't maintain the connections others maintained, couldn't sustain the relationships others sustained, couldn't preserve the bonds others preserved. You blamed yourself for the aloneness, criticized yourself for the isolation, condemned yourself for the solitude. But tonight you're going to see the truth that will liberate you from that false guilt, that unnecessary shame, that unwarranted self-condemnation. Tonight you're going to understand that your solitary path wasn't evidence of punishment but proof of protection, wasn't sign of rejection but mark of selection, wasn't indication of being forsaken but demonstration of being chosen for assignment so significant, so critical, so essential that divine forces had to isolate you from influences that would contaminate it, separate you from energies that would corrupt it, remove you from connections that would compromise it. The chosen walk alone, not because they're defective, not because they're flawed, not because they're broken, but because they carry something precious that requires protection, something powerful that demands preservation, something significant that necessitates isolation from contaminating influences, corrupting energies, compromising connections. Your aloneness is badge of calling, mark of assignment, sign of destiny. And understanding this will transform your relationship with solitude, will revolutionize your experience of isolation, will fundamentally shift your perception of your solitary path. Let me tell you why the chosen walk alone, because understanding the reasons will heal the wounds solitude created, will redeem the pain isolation caused, will restore the years the loneliness consumed. First, the chosen walk alone because their frequency is different. You vibrate at a different level than most people, operate at a different frequency than masses, resonate at a different vibration than crowds. This isn't superiority, this isn't arrogance, this isn't pride. This is simply reality of spiritual evolution, truth of consciousness development, fact of frequency elevation. Your consciousness has been expanding, your awareness has been deepening, your perception has been sharpening through experiences others haven't had, through trials others haven't faced, through processes others haven't endured. Every hardship refined your frequency, every difficulty elevated your vibration, every challenge raised your resonance. You're operating at levels most people haven't accessed, vibrating at frequencies most haven't reached, resonating at dimensions most haven't entered, and frequency mismatch creates natural separation. Like radio stations that can't connect because they're on different frequencies, like magnets that repel because of polarity, like oil and water that can't mix because of composition. It's not that you don't want connection, it's not that others are bad people, it's simply that frequencies don't match, vibrations don't align, resonances don't harmonize. When you try to connect with people operating at different frequencies, the interaction feels forced, the relationship feels draining, the bond feels unsustainable. This frequency difference was creating cognitive dissonance, energetic drain, vibrational incompatibility. Staying connected to people at different frequencies was depleting you, exhausting you, draining you. You felt it but didn't understand it. You experienced it but couldn't articulate it. The tiredness after social interactions, the exhaustion after gatherings, the depletion after attempting to maintain connections with people whose frequency didn't match yours. So divine wisdom created separation, not as punishment, but as protection. Not as rejection, but as preservation. Separating you from frequencies that were draining you, isolating you from vibrations that were depleting you, removing you from resonances that were exhausting you. The aloneness protected your energy, preserved your frequency, maintained your vibration at the level required for your assignment, necessary for your purpose, essential for your destiny. Second, the chosen walk alone because their mission is different. Your assignment isn't mass assignment. Your purpose isn't crowd purpose. Your mission isn't group mission. You're being prepared for work that requires individual development, that demands personal formation, that necessitates solitary preparation. Work that can't be done in groups. Purpose that can't be fulfilled in crowds. Mission that can't be completed in communities. Your assignment requires you to develop capacities that only develop in solitude. Skills that only form in isolation. Strengths that only build in aloneness. Leadership that only emerges when you can't depend on others. Resourcefulness that only develops when no one else is available. Self-reliance that only grows when you must do everything yourself. Character that only forms when you face yourself without buffers, without distractions, without the ability to hide behind others. If you had remained in crowd, you would have relied on crowd. If you had stayed in group, you would have depended on group. If you had continued in community, you would have leaned on community. And those dependencies would have prevented development of capacities your mission requires, hindered formation of skills your purpose demands, blocked growth of strengths your assignment necessitates. The aloneness was forcing you to develop, to grow, to expand beyond what you thought possible, beyond what you believed you could be, beyond what you assumed was your capacity. In isolation, you couldn't rely on others' strengths to compensate for your weaknesses. You couldn't depend on others' gifts to cover your deficiencies. You couldn't lean on others' abilities to fill your gaps. You had to develop, you had to grow, you had to expand. And this development, this growth, this expansion, it was preparation for mission coming, purpose approaching, assignment arriving. Third, the chosen walk alone because their message is different. What you're meant to say can't be shaped by crowd consensus, influenced by group opinion, moderated by community perspective. Your message must be pure, undiluted, uncontaminated by popular opinion, collective thinking, mass consciousness. Your voice must be authentic, original, singular, speaking truth that crowds don't want to hear, delivering message that groups don't want to receive. proclaiming reality that communities don't want to acknowledge. In crowd, you would have moderated your message. In group, you would have diluted your voice. In community, you would have softened your truth. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but naturally, automatically, inevitably. Because humans moderate in crowds, dilute in groups, soften in communities. We adjust our message to be accepted, modify our voice to be liked, temper our truth to belong. It's natural human tendency, understandable social instinct, comprehensible relational impulse. But your message can't be moderated. Your voice can't be diluted. Your truth can't be softened. What you're meant to say is too important, too critical, too essential. People need to hear it undiluted, receive it unmoderated, encounter it unsoftened. Your message will challenge comfortable beliefs, confront convenient narratives, disturb settled perspectives. It won't be popular, it won't be celebrated, it won't be embraced by masses. The aloneness protected your message, preserved your voice, maintained your truth, keeping you away from crowds that would pressure you to moderate, from groups that would influence you to dilute, from communities that would convince you to soften. Your isolation ensured your message remained pure, your voice stayed authentic, your truth continued uncontaminated. And this purity, this authenticity, this uncontaminated truth, it's what people desperately need, even if they don't immediately want it. What souls hunger for, even if egos resist it. What spirits crave, even if minds reject it. Fourth, the chosen walk alone because their standards are different. You've developed standards that most people haven't reached, boundaries that most haven't established, requirements that most haven't implemented. Standards for integrity that won't compromise, boundaries for respect that won't negotiate, requirements for authenticity that won't settle. These standards, boundaries, requirements, they're not negotiable, not flexible, not adjustable, and most people can't meet these standards. Most won't respect these boundaries, most won't satisfy these requirements, not because they're bad people, not because they're malicious, simply because they're operating at different level of consciousness, functioning at different stage of development, existing at different dimension of growth. They haven't done the work you've done, haven't faced the trials you've faced, haven't endured the processes you've endured. Maintaining connections with people who couldn't meet your standards was requiring constant compromise. Sustaining relationships with people who wouldn't respect your boundaries was demanding perpetual violation. Preserving bonds with people who couldn't satisfy your requirements was necessitating continuous settling, and each compromise was costing you pieces of yourself. Each violation was taking portions of your peace. Each settling was sacrificing fragments of your integrity. The aloneness stopped the compromising, ended the violating, eliminated the settling. Protecting your standards by removing people who couldn't meet them, preserving your boundaries by eliminating people who wouldn't respect them, maintaining your requirements by extracting people who couldn't satisfy them. This protection was necessary because your standards, boundaries, requirements, they're not arbitrary preferences but essential qualities that prepare you for what's coming, qualify you for who's approaching, position you for where you're going. Fifth, the chosen walk alone because their destiny is different. Your destiny isn't collective destiny. Your future isn't group future. Your purpose isn't crowd purpose. You're being prepared for individual assignment, personal mission, singular calling. Assignment that only you can fulfill, mission that only you can complete, calling that only you can answer. And preparation for individual destiny requires individual processing. Personal mission demands personal development. Singular calling necessitates singular formation. Crowd would have diluted your destiny. Group would have compromised your future. Community would have limited your purpose. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but naturally, automatically, inevitably. Because crowds think collectively, groups function corporately, communities operate commonly. They create consensus, establish norms, generate standards that everyone adjusts to, conforms to, aligns with. But your destiny doesn't fit consensus. Your future doesn't match norms. Your purpose doesn't align with standards. What you're meant to become is unique, singular, unprecedented. Path you're meant to walk hasn't been walked before. Territory you're meant to enter hasn't been entered before. Dimension you're meant to access hasn't been accessed before. You need individual processing for individual destiny, personal development for personal mission, singular formation for singular calling. The aloneness provided this. Individual processing without crowd influence, personal development without group pressure, singular formation without community conformity, allowing you to become who you're meant to be rather than who crowd wants you to be, to develop what you're meant to develop rather than what group expects you to develop, to form into what you're meant to form rather than what community prefers you to form. Sixth, the chosen walk alone because their testing is different. You're being tested at levels others aren't being tested, examined in dimensions others aren't being examined, proven in ways others aren't being proven, tests of character under extreme pressure, examinations of integrity under intense stress, proving of faithfulness under overwhelming challenge. Tests that can only be taken alone, examinations that must be faced individually, proving that requires solitary endurance. In crowd, you could have shared the burden. In group, you could have divided the weight. In community, you could have distributed the load. But that sharing, dividing, distributing would have prevented the testing from accomplishing its purpose, the examination from achieving its goal, the proving from completing its function. Because the test isn't just about surviving the pressure. The examination isn't simply about enduring the stress. The proving isn't merely about lasting through the challenge. The test is about discovering what you're made of when no one else is there to help. The examination is about revealing who you are when no one else is present to support. The proving is about demonstrating what you can do when no one else is available to assist. Discovering strength you didn't know you had. Revealing capacity you didn't realize you possessed. Demonstrating resilience you didn't think was in you. The aloneness ensured legitimate testing, real examination, genuine proving. Without crowd to share burden, without group to divide weight, without community to distribute load, just you, your character, your integrity, your faithfulness facing the test, enduring the examination, surviving the proving. And what was discovered? What was revealed, what was demonstrated, it qualified you for what's coming, prepared you for where you're going, positioned you for what you're meant to do. Seventh, the chosen walk alone because their enemies are different. You have enemies that most people don't have, opposition that most don't face, spiritual warfare that most don't experience. Why? Because your assignment threatens darkness in ways most assignments don't. Your purpose challenges evil in dimensions most purposes don't. Your mission confronts demonic forces in ways most missions don't. Your threat to kingdom of darkness, danger to forces of evil, risk to principalities of wickedness. And these enemies, this opposition, this warfare, it operates through people. Using people as pawns, employing people as vessels, manipulating people as instruments. Not everyone, not all people. But some people, some who seem friendly, are actually influenced by forces opposing you. Some who appear supportive are actually being used by energies attacking you. Some who look innocent are actually manipulated by powers working against you. Crowd would have included these people. Group would have contained these influences. Community would have hosted these vessels. And their proximity would have given enemy access to you, opposition opportunity against you, darkness advantage over you. They would have influenced your decisions, affected your judgments, compromised your discernment. They would have drained your energy, depleted your strength, exhausted your resources. They would have delayed your progress, derailed your purpose, destroyed your destiny. The aloneness protected you from these people. Separated you from these influences, isolated you from these vessels. removing enemy access, eliminating opposition opportunity, canceling darkness advantage. Your solitude was defensive strategy. Your isolation was protective measure. Your aloneness was security protocol, keeping you away from people who seemed harmless but were actually dangerous, from influences that appeared beneficial but were actually detrimental, from connections that looked supportive but were actually destructive. Eighth, the chosen walk alone because their preparation is different. You're being prepared for visibility, platform, influence that will attract intense scrutiny, severe criticism, persistent attack. Preparation for this level of exposure requires developing skin thick enough to withstand criticism, character strong enough to endure attack, integrity solid enough to survive scrutiny. This development happens in isolation. This strength forms in solitude. This integrity establishes in aloneness. In crowd, you would have developed dependence on crowd approval, addiction to group validation, need for community affirmation. And that dependence, addiction, need would destroy you when visibility comes, when platform arrives, when influence manifests. Because crowds are fickle, groups are unstable, communities are changeable. They celebrate you today and criticize you tomorrow, affirm you this season and attack you next season, validate you this year and vilify you next year. Your preparation required removing dependence on human approval, eliminating addiction to group validation, destroying need for community affirmation, learning to find your identity in truth rather than opinion, your value in essence rather than performance, your worth in being rather than acceptance. This learning happens in isolation where human approval is absent, in solitude where group validation is unavailable, in aloneness where community affirmation is missing. The aloneness was preparing you for coming visibility, approaching platform, arriving influence, teaching you to stand secure when crowds turn, to remain confident when groups shift, to stay certain when communities change. Building character that doesn't need crowd approval, developing integrity that doesn't require group validation, establishing identity that doesn't depend on community affirmation. Ninth, the chosen walk alone because their intimacy with divine is different. You're being called to level of intimacy with God that most people never experience, depth of relationship with divine that most never access, closeness with supernatural that most never enter, intimacy that only develops in isolation, relationship that only deepens in solitude, closeness that only forms in aloneness. When human voices are absent, divine voice becomes audible. When human presence is removed, divine presence becomes perceivable. When human companionship is eliminated, divine communion becomes accessible. In crowd, divine voice was drowned by human voices. In group, divine presence was obscured by human presence. In community, divine communion was prevented by human companionship. Not because humans are bad, but because humans are noisy, distracting, consuming of attention and energy. Their voices, presence, companionship prevented the quietness necessary for hearing divine whispers, the stillness required for sensing divine presence, the silence essential for experiencing divine communion. The aloneness created space for this intimacy, provided room for this relationship, established capacity for this closeness. With human voices absent, you learn to hear divine voice. With human presence removed, you learn to sense divine presence. With human companionship eliminated, you learn to experience divine communion. And this intimacy, relationship, closeness, it's foundation for everything you're meant to do, basis for everything you're called to accomplish, root for everything you're purposed to achieve. 10th, the chosen walk alone because their timing is different. You're operating on divine timeline that doesn't match human timelines, functioning on supernatural schedule that doesn't align with earthly schedules, moving on cosmic chronology that doesn't synchronize with natural chronologies. Your timing is different, your season is different, your moment is different, and this difference creates necessary separation, required isolation, essential aloneness. People operating on different timelines can't journey together effectively. Those functioning on different schedules can't coordinate sustainably. Individuals moving on different chronologies can't synchronize successfully. Attempting to maintain connections with people whose timing doesn't match yours creates constant friction, generates perpetual tension, produces continuous conflict. They're ready when you're not. You're ready when they're not. They're moving when you need to wait. You're moving when they need to wait. The aloneness eliminated this friction, removed this tension, dissolved this conflict, allowing you to move according to your timing without pressure to adjust to others' timelines, to function according to your schedule without demand to coordinate with others' schedules, to operate according to your chronology without requirement to synchronize with others' chronologies. Your isolation protected your timing, preserved your schedule, maintained your chronology. Now let me tell you what's coming after this season of aloneness, because understanding the purpose makes the pain bearable, makes the isolation meaningful, makes the solitude valuable. First, right people are coming. Not crowds, not masses, not multitudes, but right people, aligned people, frequency-matched people. People operating at your level, vibrating at your frequency, resonating at your dimension. People who can handle your message, respect your standards, support your destiny, withstand your testing, recognize your enemies, appreciate your preparation, honor your intimacy with divine, synchronize with your timing. These people won't require you to compromise, diminish, or moderate. They won't demand you soften your edges, dull your intensity, reduce your standards. They'll match you where you are, meet you at your level, connect with you at your frequency. Relationships will feel natural, easy, effortless. Not because they're superficial, but because they're aligned. Not because they're shallow, but because they're synchronized. Not because they're casual, but because they're compatible. Second, your assignment is coming. The work you were prepared for during isolation, the mission you were developed for during solitude, the purpose you were formed for during aloneness. Assignment that requires everything isolation taught you, everything solitude developed in you, everything aloneness built in you. Work that couldn't have been done without the preparation, mission that couldn't have been accomplished without the development, purpose that couldn't have been fulfilled without the formation. Your assignment will feel like homecoming, like finally finding your fit, discovering your place, locating your purpose. Everything you developed in isolation will be deployed. Everything you learned in solitude will be applied. Everything you built in aloneness will be utilized. The aloneness wasn't wasted. The isolation wasn't meaningless. The solitude wasn't purposeless. It was all preparation, all development, all formation for this assignment, this mission, this purpose. Third, your voice is being released. Message you protected during isolation, truth you preserved during solitude, voice you maintained during aloneness. Release that will reach people you never imagined reaching, impact individuals you never expected impacting, transform lives you never thought touching. Your voice will resonate with those operating at your frequency. Your message will connect with those ready for your truth. Your words will transform those prepared for your impact. Your voice won't please everyone, won't be celebrated by masses, won't be embraced by crowds, but it will reach the right people, the aligned people, the prepared people. And these people, they'll recognize your voice as what they've been waiting for, your message is what they've been searching for, your truth is what they've been needing. The aloneness that protected your voice was worth it. The isolation that preserved your message was necessary. The solitude that maintained your truth was essential. So understand this, chosen one. Your aloneness wasn't punishment. Your isolation wasn't rejection. Your solitude wasn't abandonment. Your aloneness was protection. Your isolation was preparation. Your solitude was formation. Every lonely moment was purposeful. Every isolated day was meaningful. Every solitary season was intentional. Nothing was wasted, nothing was random, nothing was meaningless. The chosen walk alone not because they're cursed, but because they're called. Not because they're rejected, but because they're selected. Not because they're punished, but because they're protected. Walk forward knowing your aloneness was gift. Your isolation was grace, your solitude was mercy. Walk forward understanding that season of walking alone was preparing you for season of walking in purpose. That time of isolation was developing you for time of impact. That period of solitude was forming you for period of fulfillment. The aloneness is ending. The isolation is concluding. The solitude is finishing. What's coming next requires everything. Aloneness taught you, everything isolation developed in you, everything solitude built in you. Walk into it prepared. Walk into it developed. Walk into it formed. Walk into it knowing that you walked alone, not as punishment, but as protection, not as rejection, but as preparation, not as abandonment, but as divine strategy positioning you for destiny you were always meant to fulfill. This is your truth. This is your reality. This is your testimony. You walked alone, and it was protection, not punishment.